Okay, let's jump right into today's explainer. What we're looking at honestly reads like the plot of a Hollywood medical thriller, but I assure you, it is entirely real. Right now, there is a very complex, rapidly unfolding medical mystery happening aboard the MV Hondius cruise ship, and it is literally demanding the coordination of the world's top health agencies. We're going to break down exactly what went wrong, how a microscopic threat managed to board a luxury vessel, and the frankly incredible global response it triggered.
To really grasp this, you have to understand the sheer scale of the situation. It's staggering. We're talking about nearly 150 passengers and crew members representing over 15 different countries who are currently stranded. I mean, imagine you're on what's supposed to be the trip of a lifetime, right? Exploring these incredibly remote islands in the South Atlantic, and suddenly, boom, your vessel becomes a floating quarantine zone. This isn't just a handful of people, it's a massive, multinational group essentially trapped at sea, while health authorities try to untangle a really deadly puzzle.
And that brings us to the high-stakes reality of right now. The ship is currently locked down in the port of Granadilla in Tenerife. It's being heavily monitored and strictly controlled under the escort of the Spanish Civil Guard. Basically, after the ship sailed from Cape Verde, Spain stepped up and agreed to take them in, but the situation is grim. Tragically, there are at least 9 confirmed or suspected cases linked to this outbreak, and that includes 3 fatalities, specifically a Dutch couple and a German woman. The World Health Organization has stepped in, and as you can imagine, the atmosphere around this whole rescue operation is incredibly tense. So, how did we get here? Let's trace the timeline of this tragedy, from its departure in Ushuaia, Argentina, to the delayed, deadly realization that a virus was secretly on board. The ship set sail on April 1st. Just 5 days later, a 70-year-old Dutch man starts feeling sick. By April 11th, he tragically passes away on the ship. But here's the absolutely critical detail. No medical samples were taken because, at the time, his symptoms completely mimicked a standard respiratory virus. So the ship just keeps moving. It docks at St. Helena, people get off the boat, including the man's 69-year-old wife. Then, on April 25th, she falls severely ill on a commercial flight to Johannesburg and dies the very next day. A few days after that, a German woman starts showing symptoms, passing away on May 2nd. It was really only after that second death in South Africa that testing finally confirmed the true culprit. Which leads us to the origin. The crucial piece of the puzzle here is that before they even boarded the ship, the initial victims were likely exposed in South American areas known to harbor some very specific virus-carrying rodents. The WHO Director General, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, noted that the Dutch couple had actually spent weeks traveling through Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay on a birdwatching trip. So, this wasn't something brewing down in the ship's galley. This was an invisible hitchhiker brought aboard from deep within the South American wilderness. To really understand the investigation, we need to talk about what doctors eventually realized they were actually fighting. They were dealing with a Hantavirus. This is a family of diseases spread to humans by rodents. And the scary part is, you don't even necessarily have to be bitten. Just simple exposure to rodent urine, droppings, or saliva in the environment is totally enough to contract it. It's a severe, very often fatal disease, and it completely explains why the initial medical focus was heavily on the couple's time spent exploring those rural outdoor habitats before their cruise. Now, you might be wondering, why did it take so long to actually notice what was happening? Well, this virus can take up to 8 weeks for symptoms to even develop. That totally explains why that first patient's death was mistaken for a standard winter bug or respiratory virus. I mean, think about that for a second. 2 full months could pass between breathing in the virus and actually feeling sick. This massive incubation period was literally the perfect cover. It allowed the virus to quietly travel from the rural landscapes of South America onto a densely packed luxury cruise ship and sail halfway across the world before anyone sounded the alarm. But here is the truly terrifying twist in this explainer. The Andes strain, which is found in Latin America, completely changes the rules of the game. Normally, if someone contracts a hantavirus, they can't pass it to their family or their friends or their nurses. It's a dead end. It stops with them. But the Andes strain is the only hantavirus strain in the entire world known to be capable of human-to-human transmission. This single biological difference is exactly why the MV Hondius went from being a tragic, isolated incident to a full-blown international health emergency. Because the second authorities realized it was the Andes strain, that entire passenger manifest instantly became a list of potential contacts. And because the ship made stops at places like St. Helena, asymptomatic passengers had already scattered globally before the outbreak was even officially declared. This triggered a massive international tracking effort, basically a medical manhunt. We're talking about dozens of people scattered all over the map.
There were 3 emergency flights back to the Netherlands, a patient located in Zurich, evacuations down to South Africa, and another patient hospitalized on the incredibly remote island of Tristan da Cunha. Meanwhile, American passengers who managed to get home before the lockdown are being closely monitored right now by state health agencies across California, Georgia, Texas, Virginia, and Arizona. It is, frankly, a masterclass in global epidemiological tracking. So back in the Canary Islands, how do you handle the people still stuck on the boat? The WHO and CDC are currently executing a highly controlled, phased evacuation process. They aren't just dropping the gangway and letting people casually stroll off into Spain. No way. The ship's operator is moving people in small launch boats, strictly keeping it to 5 to 10 people at a time. From there, they are carefully coordinating specific repatriation flights for the different nationalities on board. And finally, once everyone is off, a specialized skeleton crew will load up supplies and take the completely empty ship on a 5-day journey all the way back to Rotterdam. For the 17 American passengers involved, this means a direct flight to Offutt Air Force Base and isolation in specialized individual biocontainment rooms. The CDC and the Department of Health and Human Services actually sent a dedicated plane fully loaded with a team of epidemiologists straight to the Canary Islands to get them. Once they land in Omaha, Nebraska, Dr. Michael Wadman, he's the medical director of the National Quarantine Unit there, confirmed that each of the 17 Americans will be placed in their own individual room for an unspecified quarantine period. They are taking absolutely no chances. It is the highest possible level of caution. Now, it is incredibly easy to hear the words biocontainment unit and instantly panic, right? But health leaders really want to emphasize that the wider public is completely safe. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, the acting CDC director, explicitly stated that the virus requires close, symptomatic contact to spread. It just doesn't spread from people who aren't actively showing symptoms. The WHO totally echoes this, assessing the overall public risk as very low. All of this intense response, it's really just about protecting the passengers and cutting off the chain of transmission right at the source, not a warning of widespread community danger. Which really leaves us with a final thought to ponder to wrap up today's explainer. It's wild to think about the incredible, unseen global coordination required to keep our modern world safe. A quiet, peaceful afternoon bird watching in South America literally triggered an international military-grade medical evacuation off the coast of Africa. As our global travel networks connect us faster and more seamlessly than ever before, how do we balance that thrill of exploration with the hidden microscopic risks that might just travel back home with us? It's a fascinating question and one that these global health officials are having to answer in real time.